a place where gunfire places lullabies, where gangs rule the streets, and where poverty holds an entire community hostage. This is Ghost Town, South Africa's most feared no-go zone. But behind the headlines lies a story of struggle, resilience, and a fight for survival that the world cannot ignore. Stay with us as we uncover the hidden truth of Ghost Town. And don't forget to subscribe to Zimo Voice for more powerful documentaries like this one. No-Go Zones, the story of South Africa's ghost town. South Africa, a land of immense beauty, a place where the Atlantic and Indian Oceans crash together beneath the shadow of Table Mountain, where wine estates flourish and modern business districts shine with glass and steel. Cape Town, the country's oldest city, is often called the jewel of Africa's southern tip. For millions of tourists and citizens alike, it represents hope, opportunity, and prosperity. But beyond the postcard image lies another Cape Town. A parallel world exists just a few miles away from the bustling city center, a world built on fear, addiction, and the iron grip of gangs. It is here, on the bleak sands of the Cape Flats, that one of the world's most dangerous no-go zones can be found, Ghost Town. Mitchell's Plain, one of Cape Town's largest townships, is home to over 300,000 residents. On the surface, it looks like any other sprawling community. Yet the statistics reveal a darker truth. Every year, thousands of violent crimes are recorded here. Hundreds of assaults, sexual attacks, and murders, alongside a flood of drug-related offenses. But even these official numbers do not capture the full extent of the violence. Locals whisper of far higher figures. Crimes that never make it into the records because they occur in places the police themselves refuse to enter. At the very heart of this township lies Ghost Town, a neighborhood ruled not by law but by fear. It is a stronghold of the gang known as the Ugly Americans, led for nearly 4 decades by a man whose name inspires both loyalty and terror, Dimes. For 37 years, he has reigned as a shadow king, creating his own laws, enforcing his own justice, and defending his territory with ruthless efficiency. Here, the police do not patrol. Ambulances refuse to enter. Outsiders who stumble into Ghost Town rarely return. For those who live here, the daily reality is simple. Obey the gang's rules or pay the ultimate price. South Africa is home to over 100 gangs, each controlling their own patch of land. But the borders of these patches are more than lines on a map. They are battlefields. The Ghost Town borders are no exception. Railway lines and street corners where life and death are decided in an instant. In Cape Town as a whole, 57 murders occur every single day. And in Ghost Town, where weapons are everywhere and fear is currency, survival is never guaranteed. The gang headquarters, known locally as the White House, stand at the center of Ghost Town like a fortress. Bullets and Molotov cocktails have scarred its walls, but the building remains unbroken. It is here that Dimes and his closest men gather. His right hand, the knife master known as Boozy, and his deadly enforcer, Andre Gideon, a man feared simply by his nickname, Anus. Together they enforce the rules of Ghost Town. Rules that are simple, brutal, and unforgiving. For the people trapped here, drugs are both lifeline and curse. Crystal meth, known locally as tick, has ravaged entire generations, and mandrax, a sedative smoked in bottles, is equally widespread. Addiction fuels a cycle of crime, prostitution, and violence, ensuring that the grip of the gangs grows ever stronger. This is Ghost Town, a place where life is cheap, children are raised in the shadow of violence, and the dream of escaping feels like a distant fantasy. It is one of the toughest places in the world, a place where even hope itself seems to be on the run. For outsiders, the figure of Dimes is almost mythical. To the residents of Ghost Town, however, he is very real and very present. For nearly 4 decades, he has stood at the head of the Ugly Americans, transforming a street gang into something closer to a shadow government. His name is etched into memory of every man, woman, and child who has grown up in this no-go zone. Those who cross him do not live long enough to tell their stories. Dimes is not just a gang leader. He is a symbol of unchallenged power, a man whose word can condemn or protect. His network of loyal soldiers and enforcers extends across Ghost Town, watching every corner, every street, every movement. They know who comes and goes. They know who pays their debts and who doesn't. His headquarters, the White House, is both a sanctuary and a warning. Its walls, riddled with bullet holes, bear the scars of countless battles. To gang members, it is a place of brotherhood, a fortress where they regroup and plan. To the residents, it is a grim reminder of who truly controls their lives. Among Dime's closest lieutenants is Boozy, the knife master. Known for his precision and cruelty, Boozy's reputation alone keeps many in line. His weapon is not just steel, but fear itself. Then there is Andre Gideon, called Anus, a man whose mere presence inspires dread. Together, they form the Iron Fist of the Ugly Americans, ensuring that no one forgets the rules of Ghost Town. And those rules are brutally simple: obey or die. Children growing up here learn early who holds power. They see gang members patrolling the streets with weapons visible, marking territory with graffiti, and settling disputes not in courtrooms, but in sudden bursts of violence. The sound of gunfire is so common that it no longer shocks. For the youngest generation, joining a gang often feels less like a choice and more like an inevitable destiny. Drugs form the lifeblood of this empire. Tick, crystal meth, is everywhere, its toxic smoke curling through the windows of shacks and houses. Mandrax, another favorite, is smoked in bottles, numbing pain but fueling dependency. The addict become both customers and pawns, feeding the gang's coffers while binding themselves further into the cycle of control. Every corner of Ghost Town reflects this grip. Streets littered with broken glass and spent cartridges. Houses where mothers mourn sons lost bullets. Children who should be in school instead running errands for gangsters, carrying packages they do not dare open. The police, they are ghosts themselves here. They rarely enter Ghost Town, and when they do, it is in armored vehicles, heavily armed, moving quickly before disappearing again. For the most part, they prefer to patrol the edges, leaving the heart of the township under Dime's rule. Ambulances refuse to answer calls from inside the zone, fearing ambush. For residents, it means that in emergencies, they are on their own. The sense of isolation is overwhelming. To live in Ghost Town is to live outside the law, outside the state, outside the hope of ordinary life. Here, loyalty to the gang is enforced not only by fear, but by necessity. Protection, food, and survival are often tied to Dime's network. To oppose him is not just dangerous, it is suicidal. And yet, even within this grim world, whispers of resistance linger. Families who refuse to let their children be recruited. Teachers who struggle against impossible odds to give education in a place where guns speak louder than books. Clerics and community leaders who try to preach peace, knowing their words may be drowned out by the sound of gunfire. Ghost Town is not just a place. It is a state of existence, a cage without bars, where fear rules every sunrise and survival is the only law that matters. For most residents, survival is not about dreams or ambitions. It is about enduring the next 24 hours. The streets are filled with a tense silence that can break in an instant. Mothers walk quickly with their children, always glancing over their shoulders. Fathers, if present, try to keep their families fed in a place where legitimate work is scarce. Children, however, are the most vulnerable. From the moment they are old enough to run errands, the gangs begin to notice them. A boy carrying groceries today might be carrying drugs tomorrow. A young girl on her way to school might find herself cornered by recruiters who promise protection, money, and belonging. In Ghost Town, gang membership is marketed as a family, a brotherhood stronger than blood. For a child who has grown up amid violence, this false sense of community can be irresistible. Those who resist face intimidation. Their families may be threatened, their homes marked with graffiti. Some parents send their children to live with relatives outside the township, hoping to keep them safe, but for many, there is no escape. Poverty ties them to the same streets where death lurks around every corner. The addicts are another part of daily life. Crystal meth, tick, is the drug of choice. Its effects are devastating. Paranoia, aggression, rapid decline of the body. In Ghost Town, tick addicts roam the streets like shadows, scavenging for anything that can be sold or traded for another hit. Their desperation fuels petty crime, which in turn feeds the gang's control. Every addict is both a victim and a customer, trapped in a cycle that strengthens the very system destroying them. Women carry the heaviest burden. Many are single mothers, raising children alone after fathers have been killed, jailed, or swallowed by the gang life. They live under constant fear, yet they show resilience. They form informal support networks, sharing food, watching each other's children, and warning one another when danger is near. In this bleak world, small acts of solidarity become acts of defiance. The infrastructure of Ghost Town mirrors the decay of its society. Electricity is unreliable, water scarce, and sanitation nearly absent. Houses are patched together with corrugated metal and wood. Streets turn into rivers of mud during rain. While in summer, the dust chokes the air. Yet within these crumbling homes, families try to hold on to fragments of normalcy. Meals cooked together, prayers whispered at night, children still finding moments to laugh in the midst of despair. Education, too, is a battlefield. Schools exist, but attendance is fragile. Teachers face the daily challenge of keeping children focused while gunfire crackles in the distance. Many students drop out early, lured by the quick money of gang life. Those who persevere often see education as their only ticket out, a fragile thread of hope in a place that offers none. Healthcare is almost non-existent. Clinics are understaffed, and ambulances rarely risk entering the township. For many, medical emergencies end in tragedy simply because help never arrives. A gunshot wound, which in another city might be survivable, often becomes a death sentence in Ghost Town. Despite all this, people endure. They adapt to the rhythm of fear. They learn when to stay indoors, when to speak, and when to remain silent. They live by unspoken rules. Never walk alone at night. Never look too long at the wrong person. Never ask questions that could get you killed. Ghost Town is a place where normal life bends and twists around the dominance of violence. It is not just about gangs and guns. It is about the crushing weight of poverty, the absence of a state, and the resilience of ordinary people who still cling to life, even when death surrounds them. The gangs that dominate Ghost Town are not small-time groups of young men with weapons. They are organized, structured, and disciplined, more like paramilitary units than street crews. Each has its own hierarchy, its own rules, and its own claim to territory. And territory means everything. A few streets, a block, or even a single corner can mean control over hundreds of addicts, thousands of rand in drug money, and influence that stretches beyond the township. Conflict between these gangs is constant. Sometimes it erupts in sudden, bloody clashes. Other times it simmers quietly, with threats and intimidation creating an atmosphere of constant dread. When gunfire breaks out, it is not random. It is calculated, intended to send a message. Bodies are left on the streets as warnings. Graffiti marks the walls, not just as art, but as declarations of ownership. This street belongs to us. Enter at your own risk. Children grow up watching these battles unfold like a grim theater. For them, gunshots are as familiar as thunderstorms. Some even imitate what they see, playing gang games in the alleyways with toy guns, unaware that one day the real weapons may be forced into their hands. The police, though present, are often powerless. When clashes erupt, they sometimes hesitate to intervene, knowing the gangs are heavily armed and willing to attack officers as well. In some cases, there are allegations that corrupt officials take bribes, turning a blind eye in exchange for a share of the profits. Whether true or not, this belief only strengthens the gang's grip. Residents see the police as either absent or compromised, leaving them with no one to turn to. At night, the township transforms. Streetlights barely work, and shadows swallow the alleyways. Gunmen move like ghosts, setting ambushes, guarding corners, or hunting rivals. The air carries a strange mix of silence and sudden violence. The echo of a single gunshot can send families diving to the floor, clutching their children until the danger passes. For the gangs, war is not just about survival. It is about reputation. To show weakness is to invite defeat. That is why violence is often public, brutal, and staged. A beating in the open, a murder carried out in daylight, an execution where everyone can see. Fear is a currency, and it must be spent generously to keep power intact. These gang wars spill over into the lives of ordinary people. A stray bullet may claim the life of a schoolchild. A shopkeeper may refuse to pay protection money and be gunned down as a warning to others. Families are displaced when their homes fall within contested borders. Ghost Town becomes a shifting chessboard of power, and its people are the pawns caught between kings who show no mercy. Yet amid this chaos, alliances shift. Sometimes two rival gangs will temporarily unite to fight a common enemy, only to turn on each other again once the threat is gone. Betrayal is common. Trust is scarce. The only constant is bloodshed. The cycle feeds itself. Violence fuels fear. Fear fuels silence. Silence allows the gangs to grow stronger. And the stronger they become, the more violence follows. Ghost Town is not just a neighborhood. It is a battlefield where the war never ends. Over the years, South African authorities have announced countless plans to clean up Ghost Town. Politicians arrive with cameras, promising to bring safety, jobs, and schools. They speak of urban renewal, of new housing projects, of rehabilitation center for addicts. But when the speeches end and the cameras leave, little changes. The gangs remain, the drugs flow, and the people of Ghost Town feel abandoned once again. Part of the problem lies in resources. The police force is stretched thin across the country, dealing with everything from violent crime to corruption scandals. When reinforcements do come, they arrive in armored vehicles, kicking down doors and staging massive raids. For a few days, there is silence, but the moment they leave, the gangs reemerge, bolder than before. To the people, these raids feel like storms, loud, destructive, and gone too quickly to change anything. Non-governmental organizations, NGOs, have also stepped in, trying to break the cycle. They set up small community centers, offering children safe spaces to study or play. They bring in counselors to work with addicts, teachers to keep kids in school, and activists to give young people an alternative to the gang life. Some of these programs have seen real success. Individual lives have been turned around. A boy who might have joined a gang becomes a football player. A girl at risk of addiction finds her way into university. But these stories, as inspiring as they are, often feel like drops in an ocean. The sheer scale of Ghost Town's problems overwhelms even the most dedicated NGOs. Funding runs out, volunteers burn out, and the gangs, sensing a threat to their influence, sometimes retaliate by intimidating or attacking those who try to change the system. Community leaders, pastors, and mothers of the township play a vital role too. They stand at funerals, speaking against violence. They organize marches, demanding better protection. They open their homes to children who have nowhere else to go. These local heroes are brave, but they are also vulnerable. Standing up against the gangs can mean putting your own life in danger, and many have paid that price. The tragic reality is that every attempt to reclaim Ghost Town runs into the same wall: poverty. As long as unemployment remains high, as long as families struggle to eat, the gangs will always have a pool of recruits. A hungry teenager, offered quick money and a sense of belonging, will often choose a gang over classroom. Poverty is the soil in which Ghost Town's violence grows. And until that soil changes, nothing else can. So Ghost Town remains trapped, caught between government promises, NGO efforts, and community resistance, yet still firmly in the grip of gangs. For every child saved, dozens more are lost. For every small victory, a larger setback lurks. And the township continues to live under a shadow that no one has yet been able to lift. Meet Thandi, a mother of three who has lived in Ghost Town her whole life. Her husband was killed in a crossfire between two gangs. Since then, she has been raising her children alone, working long hours cleaning houses in wealthier suburbs. Every morning she leaves before dawn, praying that her children will be safe while she's gone. She locks the door, but she knows locks mean little here. Her oldest son, just 14, has already been approached by gang recruiters offering him money, clothes, and protection. She fights every day to keep him in school, but she admits, with tears in her eyes, that she cannot watch him every hour. Then there's Sizwe, a former gang member. He joined at 15 after dropping out of school. For him, the gang was family. They gave him food, a gun, and a sense of belonging. But the price was high. He was forced to commit crimes, to fight rivals, to risk his life daily. By the time he turned 20, he had seen more blood than most soldiers. After surviving a near-fatal shooting, he decided to walk away. Today, he works with an NGO warning children about the dangers of the life he once lived. But even he admits that leaving wasn't easy. You never really leave. he says. You carry the scars, the memories, the enemies, and sometimes they come back for you. For children, the violence becomes background noise. A 9-year-old girl named Ayanda describes gunfire as if it were weather. When it rains, we stay inside. When they shoot, we also stay inside. To her, danger is normal. Yet she dreams of becoming a teacher one day. Someone who can help children like herself escape the cycle. These stories reveal the hidden cost of ghost towns' endless conflict. It's not just about gangs and guns. It's about broken families, lost potential, and a generation growing up under a constant shadow. For every statistic of crime or murder, there's a face, a name, and a future stolen. Some residents refuse to give up hope. They cling to faith, to resilience, to the belief that change is still possible. Community gatherings, church services, and neighborhood watch groups all serve as small acts of resistance. Even laughter, shared meals, or children playing in the streets become quiet rebellions against despair. But the fear never leaves. Every resident knows someone who has been killed, injured, or imprisoned. Every family carries a story of loss. And for many, survival is the only goal. Dreams of a better life feel distant, almost impossible, when each day is a fight just to stay alive. Ghost Town's human stories remind us that this is not just a place of violence. It is a place of people. People who love, who hope, who suffer, and who endure. Behind the headlines of no-go zones are mothers trying to protect their children, youth searching for meaning, and communities desperately holding on to fragments of normal life amid chaos. The term no-go zone is not given lightly. Around the world, it refers to neighborhoods so dangerous that even police, journalists, or government officials hesitate to enter. Ghost Town earned this title through decades of violence, lawlessness, and failed attempts at control. International media have described it as a war zone in miniature, a place where the rule of the gangs outweighs the rule of law. For outsiders, the label becomes a warning. Don't go there. Don't drive in. Don't even think about stopping. Taxi drivers avoid the area. Delivery trucks change their routes. Tourists, when they hear the name, cross it off their maps entirely. Ghost Town is cut off, not by walls or borders, but by fear. But for those who live there, the no-go zone title is both a burden and a shield. On one hand, it isolates them. It tells the rest of the country and the world that they are dangerous, unworthy, untouchable. Employers hear the address and hesitate to hire. Schools outside the township are reluctant to accept children from Ghost Town. The stigma becomes another prison, trapping people who are already fighting to escape. On the other hand, the label also creates a strange kind of protection for the gangs. When a place is marked as too dangerous to enter, it allows the criminal networks inside to operate with even more freedom. Police hesitate, journalists stay away, and the violence continues unchecked. The gangs exploit this reputation, turning it into part of their myth. They thrive on the fear, using it as a weapon as powerful as their guns. The government bristles at the term. Officials argue that calling Ghost Town a no-go zone exaggerates the danger, that it makes South Africa look weak on the global stage. And in some ways, they are right. Not every street is under constant gunfire. Not every corner is deadly. There are families, children, shopkeepers, ordinary life happening in the shadows of extraordinary violence. But the truth remains. Ghost Town has earned its reputation, and erasing will take far more than press releases or political speeches. Internationally, the image of Ghost Town plays into broader narratives about South Africa, about inequality, about crime, about the lingering scars of apartheid. It becomes a symbol, not just of one community, but of a country still wrestling with its past and struggling to define its future. For the residents, this label is suffocating. They want the world to see more than gangs and guns. They want their children's dreams, their acts of kindness, their resilience to be recognized too. Yet until change comes, Ghost Town will remain stamped with a mark that is hard to erase. A no-go zone in the heart of South Africa. Ghost Town did not fall apart overnight. Its story is tied to South Africa's broader history, shaped by decades of systemic inequality and neglect. During apartheid, Black South Africans were forced into segregated communities on the margins of cities. These areas were underdeveloped by design, lacking schools, hospitals, and proper housing. Ghost Town was one of many such neighborhoods, created not to flourish, But to contain, the people who lived there were pushed into low-paying jobs, often traveling long hours into white-controlled parts of the city to work as maids, laborers, or security guards. Meanwhile, their own community was left to crumble. The government invested little in infrastructure. Roads cracked, electricity lines went unfixed, and schools remained overcrowded. For children growing up in this environment, opportunity was scarce from the start. When apartheid ended in 1994, there was hope that life would change. And for many South Africans, it did. A new democracy brought rights, freedoms, and opportunities long denied. But places like Ghost Town did not suddenly transform. The years of neglect had left deep scars. Unemployment remained high. Poverty persisted. The new government faced enormous challenges. And communities like Ghost Town were often at the bottom of the priority list. Into this vacuum, gangs stepped in. They became the providers, the protectors, and the rulers. They offered what the state did not: money, belonging, even a kind of twisted justice. Young men who had grown up with nothing now had a path. Brutal, dangerous, but real. They picked up guns instead of textbooks, and Ghost Town began its slide deeper into violence. Drugs made everything worse. As South Africa opened up to the world, international drug networks saw opportunity. Cocaine, heroin, and methamphetamine flowed in, finding eager markets in poor communities. Ghost Town became a hub, both for consumption and distribution. The gangs grew richer, their power stronger, and the community weaker. The cycle became self-reinforcing. Poverty bred gangs. Gangs fueled violence. Violence scared away investment, jobs, and opportunities, which led to even more poverty. And so Ghost Town remained trapped, its roots in apartheid-era segregation, its present defined by the failures of both past and present governments. Today, when outsiders see Ghost Town, they often see only the violence. But beneath that violence lies a long history of abandonment, stretching back generations. To understand Ghost Town is to understand not just gangs and drugs, but the legacy of a system designed to keep communities weak, divided, and desperate. South Africa is often called the most unequal country in the world. A small elite lives in wealth that rivals the richest nations, while millions struggle just to survive. Gleaming suburbs with mansions and private security sit only a few kilometers away from townships like Ghost Town, where families crowd into shacks without running water. The contrast is not just visible, it is staggering. Unemployment lies at the heart of this divide. For young people in South Africa, the unemployment rate often hovers near 60%. That means more than half of the youth have no job, no income, and no prospects. In Ghost Town, that number feels even higher. Factories that once employed locals have closed. Businesses are reluctant to invest in such dangerous areas. And schools often fail to prepare students for competitive jobs. With so few opportunities, the gangs offer what the economy cannot: a way to make money. Inequality deepens the wound. Those who grow up in Ghost Town can see, with their own eyes, the wealth just beyond their borders. They see luxury cars speeding down highways, shopping malls filled with goods they cannot afford, and tourists enjoying the beauty of Cape Town, only a short drive away. This creates a burning sense of exclusion. People are not just poor, they are poor in the shadow of extreme wealth. That contrast fuels resentment, anger, and a willingness to reject a system that seems stacked against them. Education is supposed to be a way out. But in places like Ghost Town, schools are overcrowded, underfunded, and often unsafe. Teachers face the challenge of students who arrive hungry, traumatized, or already recruited by gangs. Many drop out before finishing high school, closing off a chance for better opportunities. The pipeline from childhood to gang life feels almost automatic, a conveyor belt that keeps producing the next generation of fighters. Meanwhile, inequality in South Africa has another dimension: race. Though apartheid officially ended decades ago, its economic legacy remains. White South Africans still control much of the country's wealth, while black communities like Ghost Town struggle with generational poverty. This racial dimension adds another layer of frustration and mistrust, making the fight for equality not just about money, but about dignity and history. Ghost Town, then, is not just a local crisis. It is a mirror of South Africa's broader struggles. It shows what happens when unemployment, inequality, and exclusion intersect. It reveals how poverty creates the perfect breeding ground for gangs, and how violence perpetuates the cycle. And it forces the country and the world to confront a difficult question. How can a nation rich in resources, potential, and talent allow entire communities to fall so deep into despair? When the outside world hears about Ghost Town, it is almost always through headlines filled with violence. South Africa's murder capital no-go zone, or township of fear. Documentaries, journalists, and foreign correspondents visit to capture images of armed men burning tires and children playing in bullet-riddled streets. These images are shocking, powerful, and true, but they only tell part of the story. On one hand, international media attention has helped shine a spotlight on Ghost Town. It has forced conversations about poverty, inequality, and crime in South Africa. NGOs sometimes use these reports to attract funding, while governments are pressured to act when global audiences see the failures of law and order. Awareness is important. Without it, places like Ghost Town will remain invisible, their struggles ignored. But there is also a darker side. The constant portrayal of Ghost Town as a violent wasteland creates stigma. Residents become defined by their postcode. Employers in other parts of the city refuse to hire them, fearing they are trouble. Children who move to new schools are bullied when classmates learn they are from Ghost Town. For many, the media coverage feels like another punishment. The world knows their pain, but rarely their humanity. This global spotlight also feeds into stereotypes about South Africa. The country is already battling an image problem, with stories of crime and corruption often overshadowing its beauty, culture, and resilience. When Ghost Town is shown as a lawless frontier, it becomes symbolic of the whole nation. Tourists second-guess their trips, investors hesitate, and ordinary South Africans feel their country's reputation being dragged down by images of despair. And yet, for the gangs, this kind of media coverage can be twisted into a badge of honor. Being called a no-go zone only boosts their reputation. Fear gives them power, and the more famous Ghost Town becomes for its danger, the stronger their myth grows. A gang leader who sees his neighborhood on foreign news feels legitimized, proof that his control is recognized not just locally, but worldwide. The truth is more complicated. Ghost Town is violent, yes, but it is also filled with families who work hard, children who dream, and people who refuse to give up hope. Unfortunately, those stories rarely make the news. Violence sells. Hope does not. And so, the cycle continues. The world sees Ghost Town through a lens of fear, and the residents are left to live with the consequences of a reputation they did not all create. The question that haunts Ghost Town is simple but heavy. Can it ever be reclaimed? Some believe the answer is yes, but only with massive, sustained effort. Others argue that the damage runs too deep, that Ghost Town will always be a place of shadows. For real change to happen, the solutions must go far beyond police raids and short-term crackdowns. Law enforcement can silence the gangs for a week or two, but when the officers leave, the guns return. What Ghost Town needs most is opportunity. Jobs that pay enough to keep young men from joining gangs. Schools that inspire children instead of failing them. Healthcare that treats addiction as an illness rather than leaving addicts to rot in alleyways. Rebuilding Ghost Town means investing in people, not just policing them. NGOs have shown glimpses of what is possible. A football program that keeps boys off the streets. A sewing cooperative that gives women financial independence. A literacy project that opens doors to higher education. These small efforts prove that change is not impossible, but they need scale, resources, and long-term commitment. The government, too, must play its part. Corruption, inefficiency, and neglect have all fueled Ghost Town's decline. Without political will, no solution will last. Officials must see Ghost Town not as a problem to hide from tourists, but as a community worth saving. Real investment in housing, infrastructure, and jobs could begin to turn the tide, but it requires courage, consistency, and a willingness to confront powerful criminal networks. There's also the question of dignity. Many residents of Ghost Town feel abandoned, treated as second-class citizens in their own country. Restoring hope means restoring trust. Trust in leaders, in institutions, and in the future. That cannot happen overnight, but it can start with small victories. Safer schools, working streetlights, a clinic that doesn't run out of medicine, Still, the risks remain. If nothing changes, Ghost Town may sink deeper into violence, becoming a permanent stronghold for gangs. The children growing up today will become tomorrow's foot soldiers. The cycle will continue, and the label of no-go zone will harden into permanence. But if change comes, if investment meets resilience, if leadership replaces corruption, if opportunity outshines fear, Ghost Town could become something else entirely. A symbol, not of despair, but of transformation. A place that shows the world how even the darkest corners can find light again. Ghost Town is more than just a neighborhood on the edge of Cape Town. It is a story, a mirror reflecting the deepest wounds of South Africa and, in many ways, the wider world. Its streets tell us of history's cruelty, of promises broken, of systems that failed entire generations. But they also whisper of resilience, of families who refuse to let go of hope even as everything around them falls apart. For decades, Ghost Town has lived under the shadow of gangs. Children have grown up with gunfire as their lullaby. Mothers have buried sons before they became men. Addicts have wasted away in corners while drug lords grew rich. Outsiders come and call it a no-go zone, a place of danger and despair. And yet, for those who live here, it is home. It is where love still exists, where laughter still rings out between cracks of violence, where neighbors still share what little they have. This is a paradox of Ghost Town. Tragedy and beauty, despair and defiance, hopelessness and hope, all existing side by side. To reduce it only to crime is to erase the humanity of its people. To reduce it only to suffering is to ignore their courage. Ghost Town is broken, yes, but it is not defeated. The future of Ghost Town hangs in the balance. If nothing changes, it will remain trapped in its cycle, a place where gangs rule, children inherit violence, and the rest of the world looks on with pity or fear. But if real change comes, if the government chooses to act with courage, if NGOs are supported, if opportunities replace despair, then Ghost Town could write a new chapter. Imagine a ghost town where children walk to school without fear of stray bullets, where young men find dignity in work rather than gangs, where women are leaders, not widows, where streets echo not with gunfire, but with music, conversation, and the simple rhythm of ordinary life. This is not a fantasy. It is possible, but it requires commitment, sacrifice, and vision. Ghost Town forces us to ask hard questions, not only about South Africa, but about the world we live in. Why do some communities thrive while others are left to collapse? Why is it easier to send guns and jobs, to build prisons instead of schools? And most of all, how long can we look away before the cost of ignoring places like Ghost Town becomes too high for all of us? Because Ghost Town is not alone. There are no-go zones across the world, in South America, in Asia, in Europe, even in wealthy nations. They may not share the same language or history, but they share the same wounds: poverty, exclusion, abandonment. Ghost Town is one chapter in a much larger story, a global reminder that when we ignore inequality, we plant the seeds of violence that will one day return to haunt us all. And so, the story of Ghost Town does not truly end here. Its next chapter is still being written. By the mothers fighting for their children, by the young men choosing books over guns, by the leaders who dare to dream of something better. The world may call a no-go zone, but for those who live here, it is a place worth fighting for. Ghost Town is not just a warning. It is a test of whether we, as societies, are willing to confront inequality with justice, violence with opportunity, despair with hope. If we fail, Ghost Town remains trapped. If we succeed, it becomes proof that even the darkest places can rise. The final question is not about Ghost Town alone. It is about us. What kind of world do we want to live in? One that abandons the forgotten, or one that fights for them? The answer lies not in words, but in action. And until action comes, Ghost Town will wait, scarred, battered, but unbroken.